水流型モンスターが住んでるらしいわ。
じゃあ戦うしかないわけか。
それしかないんだけど、ちょっとヤバいかもよ。サラマンダーがこんな高位の土魔法を使えるってこと。
君の剣の腕を信用してないわけじゃないんだけど、俺の後ろで回復役に徹してほしいんだ。
After a jaw-dropping fight against the Skull Reaper and the shocking revelation of Heathcliff's true identity as Kayaba Akihiko, the creator of Sword Art Online, what could possibly happen next? Hold on to your seats as we dive into the tumultuous events of the next episodes. In episode 14 of Sword Art Online, tensions reach a boiling point as Kirito and his fellow players continue their battle against the Skull Reaper. After an arduous fight, they finally manage to deplete the boss's life bar, with Heathcliff instructing everyone to launch a final all-out assault. The group's victory, however, is bittersweet, as Kirito reveals that the raid has cost the lives of 14 high-level players. As doubt and fear grip the remaining players, Kirito becomes suspicious of Heathcliff, who seems mysteriously unfazed by the intense battle. Recalling their previous duel, Kirito impulsively attacks Heathcliff, only to have his strike halted by a system-generated immortal object shield. The shield's appearance forces Heathcliff to reveal his true identity as Kayaba Akihiko, the creator of Sword Art Online. Akihiko admits that he had always intended to reveal himself as the game's final boss on the 100th floor, but acknowledges that Kirito's exceptional skills forced his hand earlier than planned. The situation escalates when one of the Knights of the Blood attempts to attack Akihiko, only to be paralyzed by a system command. Akihiko then offers Kirito a one-on-one duel, promising to end the game and free everyone if he loses. Asuna and others try to dissuade Kirito from accepting the perilous challenge, but haunted by the memories of those who have died, he agrees. During the duel, Kirito gains the upper hand, but a momentary lapse in concentration allows Akihiko to counterattack. Just as it seems that Kirito will lose, Asuna sacrifices herself to save him, despite being paralyzed moments before, a development that even Akihiko hadn't foreseen. This sacrifice allows Kirito to muster the strength for one final attack, killing Akihiko and ending the game. The episode concludes with both Kirito and Asuna sharing a poignant moment in a metaphysical space as they watch the game world disintegrate. They share their real names and express their love for each other before vanishing. Finally, Kirito wakes up in a hospital in the real world, immediately removing his nerve gear and searching for Asuna. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What anime has a villain that is more interesting than the hero? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in a future video. The narrative takes a sharp turn from the fantastical to the intensely personal, focusing on the reality that the players must confront after their 2-year ordeal in the virtual world. The episode begins with a haunting nightmare where Kirito, Kazuto Kirigaya, loses Asuna in a collapsing virtual home, a metaphorical glimpse into his psychological state. He wakes up, visibly shaken and still unable to fully separate his SAO experiences from reality. While Kirito grapples with his emotional turmoil, his cousin Suguha, who is unaware of his SAO identity, practices kendo. The episode delves into her complex emotions stemming from the SAO incident and the years she spent in ignorance of Kazuto's participation in the death game. When Kazuto joins her and challenges her to a kendo spar, the scene becomes more than a simple physical contest. It's a battle of emotional and psychological landscapes, Kazuto's hardened SAO experiences against Suguha's disciplined kendo training. Despite losing, Kazuto leaves a lasting impression on Suguha by exhibiting combat instincts honed in the digital realm. This uncanny encounter makes her realize that her cousin has changed in ways she can't fully comprehend. The episode continues to develop the new dimensions of Kazuto's reality. It has been 2 months since he awoke from SAO, but not all players have been so fortunate. He learns that Asuna, among 300 others, has not yet woken up. The SAO Incident Task Force believes that the game's creator, Kayaba Akihiko, still has a role to play in the lingering crisis, leaving Kazuto unsettled. Arriving at the hospital to visit Asuna, Kazuto encounters her father, Yuki Shuzu, and a family friend, Sugu Nobuyuki. Nobuyuki's overly polite demeanor quickly devolves into unsettling sleaziness when Shuzu leaves the room. Revealing plans to marry the comatose Asuna, Nobuyuki taunts Kazuto and stakes his claim, attributing his power over Asuna's fate to his role in the company that took over SAO's servers. The emotional stakes skyrocket, adding a new layer of urgency to Asuna's already desperate situation. It's not just about waking her up anymore, it's also about saving her from a life she didn't choose. Kazuto is visibly rattled, his emotional state deteriorating further. He returns home defeated, both physically and emotionally. The poignant scene with Suguha that follows is layered with complex family dynamics, revealed through a flashback where we learn that Kazuto and Suguha are not siblings but cousins. The scene brings a depth of understanding to Suguha's character, highlighting her own emotional struggles related to her family. When Kazuto breaks down, Suguha becomes his emotional anchor, encouraging him not to give up, no matter how insurmountable the obstacles seem. Just when things appear to be at their lowest, Kazuto receives an email from Agil, a fellow SAO survivor. The email contains a shocking image of a girl resembling Asuna trapped in a golden cage. The implications are staggering, suggesting that Asuna's consciousness could be trapped in another virtual world. Kazuto pays a visit to Andrew, better known as Agil in the Sword Art Online game, at his cafe, Dicey Cafe. Their conversation takes a serious turn when Andrew shows Kazuto a mysterious photo of Asuna inside a new virtual reality game called Alfheim Online. Andrew explains that this game is entirely different from SAO, emphasizing player skills over levels and also allows for player killing. Most notably, it offers the power of flight to its players, a feature that quickly grabs Kazuto's attention. The game is divided into 9 different races, each vying for the opportunity to reach a castle located at the top of a gigantic world tree. This is where the photo of Asuna was purportedly taken. With Andrew encouraging him to go save Asuna, Kazuto takes the game home. At home, Suguha is shown in a moment of contemplation, pondering the previous night's emotional exchange with Kazuto. Before she can delve deeper into her feelings, Kazuto unexpectedly arrives, causing her to choke on her food. After assisting her, he moves on to his room, leaving Suguha in a state of emotional turmoil. Once inside his room, Kazuto hesitates before putting on the nerve gear, haunted by past experiences and current uncertainties. Despite this, he logs into Alfheim Online as Kirito. Upon entering the game, Kirito selects the Spriggan race, drawn by its black colour theme. However, his entry into this new world is far from smooth. A glitch sends him crashing into a forest. After the initial confusion, he's relieved to find a log out option and that his high skill values from SAO have been transferred over. This gives him a substantial advantage, even though his unique dual blade skill appears as illegible text. While checking his inventory, Kirito activates an item that materializes Yui, his AI daughter from SAO. Their reunion is touching, with Yui quickly adapting to her new role as a navigation pixie in Alfheim. Yui informs Kirito that Alfheim is essentially a copied version of SAO, but runs on a slightly outdated cardinal system. She advises him to delete most of his items before an error detection program finds them, a decision that causes him momentary regret, but ultimately saves him from complications. Yui also assures him that his abnormal skill values should not raise flags unless a game master checks them directly. Now equipped with both information and emotional support, Kirito decides to test out his flying abilities, following Yui's detailed instructions. However, their practice is cut short when Yui senses other players in the vicinity. The episode then cuts to Leifa and Recon, 2 players who are being pursued by a group of enemy salamanders. After Recon is killed, Lafa finds herself cornered and prepares to make a last stand against her assailants. Just as the tension reaches its peak, Kirito crash lands nearby. Disregarding Lafa's advice to flee, he faces the salamanders head-on, leveraging his transferred SAO skills to quickly defeat one of them. The episode concludes with Kirito confidently asking, "Who's next?" This cliffhanger leaves viewers on the edge of their seats, eager to see how Kirito's involvement will change the dynamics in this new perilous world. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out Springtrap_World376, who commented on our Kiss X Sias recap. They commented, "Who agree that Saitama has one of the best character development, cool insight." The narrative continues to focus on Kirito's journey through Alfheim Online. It begins with Kirito's standoff against Kagamuni, a salamander player who opts to retreat rather than risk dying and losing his nearly maxed magic skill. After the confrontation, Kirito turns to Leifa, offering her a choice between combat or a friendly conversation. Choosing to thank him instead of fighting, Leafa is taken aback when Kirito cheekily refers to himself as the hero who saved the princess. Yui, Kirito's AI daughter, immediately takes exception to this and pops out to make it clear that only she and Asuna have the right to hug him. Kirito and Leafa introduce themselves, although neither suspects the other's true identity. Leafa offers to buy him a drink, and Kirito tells her that he's searching for information on the World Tree. Leafa suggests heading to a neutral territory for a drink, but exceeds when Kirito insists on going to Swilvain, the Sylph city, despite the inherent danger for a Spriggan like himself. The ensuing flight sequence becomes a comical affair. Leafa is amazed that Kirito can fly without an assist controller, and educates him on the trick to do so. However, he struggles with stopping mid-flight, causing Leafa and Yui to burst into laughter. Once they reach Swilvain, Kirito's landing proves equally awkward, resulting in him crashing into a tower. He's immediately healed by Leafa's magic, but their arrival has caught the attention of Rikon, Leafa's friend. Rikon is instantly suspicious of Kirito, thinking he might be a spy. Leafa dispels his doubts, stating that Kirito saved her from the salamanders, and declines Rikon's offer to join him, opting to treat Kirito to a drink instead. At the tavern, the conversation dives into the nature of their relationships. Kirito's question about Rikon's relationship with Leafa receives a firm denial, and the topic shifts back to the World Tree. Leafa educates him about the tree's grand quest, which involves defeating powerful NPCs to gain unlimited flight. Kirito reveals that he needs to complete this quest soon to find someone, thanking Leafa for her help. Just as he prepares to leave, Leafa offers to guide him to the World Tree, setting up a meeting for the next day. Back in the real world, Suguha, Leafa's alter ego, finds herself conflicted about her feelings towards her brother Kazuto. Meanwhile, in Alfheim, Kirito and Yui share a poignant moment, with him promising that they will live as a family once Asuna is rescued. However, the episode ends on a dark note at the top of the World Tree. Fairy King Oberon, Sugu Nobuyuki, visits Asuna, who is confined and referred to as Titania. Asuna resists his unwanted advances and finds out that Oberon is conducting illegal experiments on human minds. The episode closes with Asuna's desperate hope that Kirito will come to rescue her, leaving viewers anxious about the harrowing challenges that lie ahead for the characters. Overall, the episode successfully balances action, humor, and emotional depth, weaving a complex narrative that leaves a lasting impression on the viewer. It also raises new questions about Kirito's mission and the dark secrets lurking in Alfheim Online. In a realm of digitized fantasy, Suguha, known as Leafa in Alfheim Online, ALO, confronts the emotional undertow she feels for her adopted brother Kirito, also known as Kazuto in the real world. Reminded of her original purpose to understand the allure this virtual reality holds for him, she can't ignore her emerging affection for Kirito's virtual self. Their quest for the day starts with a rendezvous at the Lily of the Valley Pavilion. Upon Leafa's arrival, Kirito is already engrossed in the logging in process. Mutual concern for their upcoming odyssey compels them to stop by the bustling market. Here, Kirito indulges in a gigantic sword, a comedic contrast to his small frame, drawing Leafa's amusement. Their journey takes a detour at the Tower of Wind in Swilvain territory. Ascending this tower would grant them the altitude needed for a long flight, but it isn't an elevator they encounter first. It's Sigurd, the overbearing leader of Leafa's adventuring party. His plea for Leafa to stay, layered with threats and ego, is sharply deflected by Kirito, igniting Sigurd's fury. However, cooler heads among Sigurd's crew prevent an altercation that would have jeopardized their public image. Although Sigurd retreats, the tension remains palpable. Taking in the breathtaking sky from the tower balcony, the duo are joined by Rikon, Nagata Shinichi in the real world, who arrives just in time for some awkward but touching farewells. A discourse on being a renegade leads Leafa to ponder the isolation and judgment that come with leaving one's designated territory. Amidst the philosophical musings, Kirito's AI daughter Yui makes a surprise appearance, intriguing and amusing everyone with her thoughts on human emotions. Meanwhile, in a dark tower atop the World Tree, Asuna finds herself captive to Oberon's unsolicited advances. His attempt to mentally subdue her backfires dramatically when he mentions that Kirito, her knight in shining armor, is indeed in the game, rekindling her hope and resilience. Back on the journey, Kirito and Leafa confront a moment of vulnerability during their rest stops, known as rotating. As Kirito finds a sandwich prepared by Suguha in the real world, Leafa grapples with a disquieting question from Yui: what does it mean to like someone? This question becomes more pressing as a hidden threat tracks their every move, a tracer, manifested as a bat, dispatched by an unseen group of salamanders. The adventure is far from over, and the emotional stakes have never been higher. In this episode, Kirito and Leafa find themselves racing against time to reach the Sylph and Kate Sith leaders for an alliance meeting. This urgent dash is complicated by the impending threat of an attack by the Salamanders, an opposing faction. But what makes this episode noteworthy isn't just the physical journey, but also the development of relationships and alliances. When Kirito lands between the Salamanders and the Alliance, his audacity alone changes the dynamics of what could have been a disastrous encounter. Kirito, still somewhat a lone wolf, starts to flex his diplomatic muscles. He's learned the importance of alliances and standing up for others from his time in Sword Art Online. His fake assertion of an alliance with the Undines and his daring challenge to General Eugene gives a glimpse into how much Kirito has evolved. He's no longer just fighting for himself, he's fighting for a new world and the people who inhabit it. The duel with General Eugene is a turning point. Eugene's weapon, the demonic sword Gram, represents an insurmountable wall, a seemingly undefeatable power. However, Kirito's resourcefulness and battle experience allow him to overcome this challenge, leading to a moment of mutual respect between the two warriors. The episode also taps into the game mechanics, including unique weapon skills, to create a thrilling narrative. Kirito and Leafa finally reach Alne, a long-anticipated destination. They plan to log off for server maintenance, which is a smart nod to MMORPG realities and gives a sense of time and urgency even in a virtual world. While the adventure inside the game is paused, the real world makes a more significant appearance than before. Both Kazuto, Kirito's real-world self, and Suguha, Leafa's real-world self, are shown in their domestic life, fleshing out their relationship as family members and potentially as something more complex. The two worlds, real and virtual, are delicately balanced in this episode, highlighting how actions in one have consequences in the other. Asuna, who has been caged both virtually and in reality, takes center stage again as she attempts a daring escape. The episode does a commendable job of creating a sense of peril, even in a space where players are not supposed to be in danger. The storyline raises ethical questions about the abuse of virtual reality technology for inhumane experiments. The episode closes with Asuna still trapped, but now with an admin card, a ray of hope. Meanwhile, in the real world, Suguha starts to confront her feelings for Kazuto, adding another layer to an already intricate narrative. In a surge of determination, Kirito unfurled his wings and rocketed towards the towering heights of the World Tree. Every fibre of his being was attuned to the quest at hand, fueled by Yui's cryptic clue that Mama was above them. Leafa, aware of a barrier that Kirito was not, flew after him, her voice tinged with urgency, as she warned him of the invisible obstacle that lay ahead. Ignoring her caution, Kirito hurled himself repeatedly against the barrier, each impact a thunderous echo of his desperation, until Leafa finally grasped his arm, pulling him away. High above them, Asuna, imprisoned at the top of the World Tree, sensed a change. Alerted by a mysterious notice and the faint sound of Yui's voice, she frantically searched for something, anything, to signal her whereabouts. Her fingers found an admin card. Below, Kirito was on the verge of another futile assault on the barrier when Yui's voice alerted him to something plummeting from above. A quick reflexive grab, and he held the admin card in his hand. Leafa was clueless about the card's significance, but Yui identified it as an admin access code, something that could give them control over the very game itself. Convinced Asuna had sent it, Kirito queried Leafa about the gateway to the World Tree's interior. Leafa outlined the daunting defenses they would face, but Kirito, gripping her hand briefly in gratitude, was undeterred. Alone, yet bolstered by necessity and love, Kirito descended to the tree's base. He was met by formidable guardian statues and a pop-up window inviting him to a grand quest. Undaunted, he accepted. Inside a dome, a spiraling path led upwards, guarded by relentless waves of guardian knights. Kirito fought through the hordes, spurred on by flashes of Asuna's face in his mind. Yet despite his best efforts, the sheer numbers overwhelmed him. Arrows found their mark, swords pierced him, and eventually his health points dropped to 0, transforming him into a spectral remain light. As he hovered in limbo, contemplating the boundaries of his virtual abilities and the futility of his strength, Leafa burst into the dome. Dodging the knight's attacks, she grabbed his remain light and retreated, using a World Tree dewdrop to revive him. He thanked her, but warned her against further sacrifices on his behalf. As he turned to leave, Leafa hesitated, her voice quivering as she began to confess her deeper feelings. Yet before the words could fully form, understanding dawned on Kirito's face. With the utterance of the words "Big Brother," their avatars were swept into a vortex of emotional realization, and Leafa logged out abruptly. In the real world, both sat separated by the closed doors of their respective rooms. Suguha was a whirlpool of emotion, her eyes brimming with tears. When Kazuto knocked, she opened the door to a confrontation steeped in painful irony. Her attempt to distance her feelings for her not-so-biological brother Kazuto by falling for Kirito had been a farce, a cruel twist of fate, and Kazuto, for his part, was left speechless, offering only a feeble apology before the door closed, leaving both to ponder the implications of this virtual and emotional entanglement. Kazuto sat quietly in his room, reconciling his dual existence as Kirito in the virtual world and his real life. Reminiscing about his past, he realized that while he once viewed games as escapism, his experiences in Sword Art Online had melded the boundaries between the virtual and the real. Suguha, in the next room, was awash in her own guilt and decided to return to ALO as Leafa. Leafa spawned in Alna's North Terrace, but was interrupted by Recon, who revealed that he had followed her after a dramatic escape from salamanders. Recon, summoning courage, confessed his love. Caught off guard, Lafa instinctively punched him, sending him tumbling down the steps. Regaining her composure, Leafa arrived at the spot where Kirito was waiting. What followed was an aerial duel, both of them soaring and slashing in a ballet of emotion. Midway, Leafa dropped her sword, plummeting deliberately. Kirito, too, discarded his weapon, catching her mid-fall. Their apologies merged into a heartfelt hug. Resolved, they decided to continue Kirito's quest to rescue Asuna. Back at the World Tree Dome, Recon was astonished to find himself part of the raid. Yui reported that the Guardian Knights were not individually strong, but compensated with sheer numbers, making the quest seemingly impossible. Undeterred, the trio dived into the quest. Recon drew aggro away from Leafa, and then used a spell called Sacrifice, effectively self-destructing to take out multiple Guardians, creating an opening. Just when it appeared they were going to be overwhelmed again, reinforcements arrived. Sakuya and Alicia swooped in with their squads, clearing a path for Kirito and Leafa. With a final burst of strength, Kirito broke through the final layers of Guardians, making it to the summit. But the doors at the summit wouldn't open. Yui explained that it was an admin lock, not part of the game mechanics. Remembering the admin card from Asuna, Kirito handed it to Yui. Data transferred, the doors creaked open, allowing them access to what lay beyond. As more Guardians reappeared to challenge them, Yui advised Kirito to hold her hand. They were about to teleport, crossing another threshold in their relentless pursuit of reality within the virtual. In an ethereal, unfamiliar corridor of the World Tree, Kirito and Yui find themselves disoriented, but laser-focused on the task ahead. They need to locate Asuna. Yui, now devoid of her usual mapping data, relies solely on her intuition. She's close, Yui assures him, and together they venture further through labyrinthine corridors and onto the tree's sprawling branches. As they navigate, Kirito is struck by a crushing realization. There is no city in the sky, as players have been led to believe. The grand quest is a farce, a malevolent ruse crafted by Sugu Nobuyuki, who masquerades as Oberon, the Fairy King. Finally they find her, Asuna, imprisoned within a cage suspended in digital ether. Yui vaporizes the cage's barrier, flying into Asuna's arms, soon joined by a tearful Kirito. Their reunion is brimming with both joy and urgency. Kirito asks if Yui can log Asuna out, but she's bound by encrypted codes that can only be undone from a system console. But their moment of warmth disintegrates as darkness envelops them, and Yui vanishes. Oberon appears, wielding his newfound abilities and gravitic magic to render Kirito and Asuna powerless. Trapped and helpless, they're forced to listen as Oberon divulges the sinister purpose behind Alfheim Online, a playground for psychological manipulation and thought control. Oberon proceeds to enact a grotesque, distressing act upon Asuna, one that makes both her and Kirito shudder in abhorrence. Oberon delights in their helplessness, ramping down the game's pain absorption settings to physically torment Kirito. Just as they near the brink of despair, a voice interrupts Kirito's internal lamentation. Kayaba Akihiko, his former enemy, appears, challenging his assumptions about the constraints of this virtual world. Spurred by this, Kirito rises, banishing his self-doubt. Utilizing Kayaba's administrator ID, he strips Oberon of his powers, engaging him in a battle that reveals Oberon's inferiority, both as a gamer and a human being. Kirito dismembers Oberon's avatar methodically, each strike a reckoning for his crimes. The final blow is struck. Oberon is obliterated. Tears fill Kirito's eyes as he liberates Asuna, embracing her with the fervor of someone reborn. Asuna calls him her hero. He counters, admitting his frailties, promising to grow stronger in both worlds. Then, Kayaba reappears, not to laud Kirito's bravery, but to hand him the World Seed, a kernel of creation for virtual realms. As he leaves, he insinuates that their stories are far from over, leaving Kirito pondering the moral cost of his victory. Within moments, Kirito and Yui find themselves back in the birdcage. As they prepare to exit the game, Yui reveals she had concealed herself in Kirito's nerve gear, safeguarding her core programming. The father-daughter duo shares a poignant moment before Kirito rushes to return to Asuna in the real world. He awakens to find Suguha by his side. As they share a moment of tender sibling love, Suguha insists he waste no time in reuniting with Asuna. Heeding her words, Kazuto mounts his bike, and as snowflakes start to descend, he revs the engine and heads towards the hospital, carrying with him not just the weight of his virtual experiences, but also the newfound hope that stems from courage, sacrifice, and indomitable human will. In a tense moment that felt like an eternity, Kirigaya Kazuto found himself facing Sugu Nobuyuki, his enemy from the virtual realm now all too real. Nobuyuki's face twisted with rage as he blamed Kazuto for his failed plans and personal pain. Armed with a knife, Nobuyuki lunged at Kazuto, who instinctively dodged and fell onto the pavement. A relentless series of kicks from Nobuyuki ensued, aiming to extinguish Kazuto's will and life. Nobuyuki's final stab, however, found only air, his eyesight still impaired from the last duel they had in Alfheim Online, ALO. Seizing the moment, Kazuto grabbed Nobuyuki's arm, incapacitating him. With a surge of strength, he took the knife and pushed Nobuyuki against a car, blade at his throat. Visions of everything Nobuyuki had done flashed before Kazuto's eyes, fueling his desire for revenge. But ultimately, he chose a different path. He spared Nobuyuki, leaving him for the police to handle. Breathing heavily, Kazuto made his way into the hospital. A pause at the door, a deep breath, and he entered Asuna's room. Their eyes met and they both knew. It was over. All battles, virtual and real, were behind them. As if meeting for the first time, they revealed their real names to each other. A hug, a kiss, and a heartfelt glance toward their SAO avatars sealed the reunion. Months later, life had resumed some semblance of normality. Kazuto attended a school specially designed for SAO survivors who were students. During lunch break, he met Asuna at a nearby park. They joked about how using their real names in a game was a giveaway to their classmates about their SAO personas. Asuna updated Kazuto on her rehab progress, mentioning that she no longer needed a cane, but was advised against running. They also discussed her father's resignation from RecT Inc., partly triggered by Nobuyuki's arrest and the consequent disbanding of RecT Progress Inc. Nobuyuki had tried to shift the blame onto Kayaba Akihiko, but ultimately confessed when an employee agreed to testify. Despite his arrest and the collapse of RecT, ALO and several other VR MMO games were shuttered, causing the virtual reality gaming industry to suffer another hit. While Kazuto and Asuna enjoyed their peaceful moment, their friends Rika and Keiko observed them from the school cafeteria, mildly envious of their intimacy. Rika regretted having promised not to interfere in their relationship, while Keiko confirmed her plans to attend an upcoming meeting with the group. Later that afternoon, the couple reunited with their friends at Dicey Cafe. Kazuto and Andrew discussed the future of VR MMOs, particularly the World Seed program Kazuto had given Andrew to analyze. It turned out to be a VR MMO creation and management package, which Andrew uploaded for free public use. This contributed to a revival in the VR MMO industry, including the resurrection of ALO under new management. Inside ALO, Suguha, Leafa, was flying solo, pondering her own inadequacies compared to the SAO survivors. Her introspection was interrupted when she was caught in the air by Kazuto, Kirito. He reassured her of her worth and shared plans of a new quest, conquering the new Aincrad, a massive floating castle that now existed in ALO. Kazuto asked for her help and she agreed, feeling a new sense of purpose. As they rendezvoused with their friends near the World Tree, Asuna, appearing as an Undine, called for them. The Yui AI, now perched on Kazuto's shoulder, welcomed her papa and mama, and so, with the words, "Okay, let's go," they all took off toward New Aincrad, flying into a future filled with endless possibilities. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more binge-worthy anime recaps, and definitely do not forget to comment your answer to the question of the day.